Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very honored to give opening remarks on this resolution. In some ways, I wish it wasn't happening because Senator Bolkcom really has been a great inspiration to this position that he serves in. Early on, I learned that if you're going to the fight, you want to if you're going to the fight, you want to take one of the best people with you, and that's Joe Bolkcom. Now, I'm not saying you're going to win every one of those, but it will be highly entertaining. And we've had many of those. He is a tenacious fighter, and I believe he has probably had more points of personal privileges than any of us in this room. He's went from, cigarette tax to the Iraq War. I believe you were on the Iraq War as well. And just an unbelievable amount of causes that he has talked about, from managed care, privatization of anything. And he really has done it with a passion and a sense of humor that has been very enlightening. He certainly taught me about the display of vegetables and fruits on your desk. He has given a lot of support to a lot of the new members that have come in, and he does that just in a very kind and gentle way to make people feel welcome. He loves engaging in a battle. I'm not sure if any of you realize that or not, but he loves the game, and he has been somebody that I have learned a lot from. He knows his background on the information, he does the research, and he makes sure that he comes to the table knowing the facts, which is, I think, pretty important in this day and age. So I strongly support this resolution because I think it's time for Senator Bolkcom and Chris to have another life besides what we're doing here. And believe it or not, there are lives outside of here. And I wholly support this and am honored to speak on it.
Is there further discussion on Senate Resolution 110? Chair recognizes the Senator from Lynn, Senator Mathis.
Okay. Hi, Joe. And thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to stand. The story that I love to share about Joe Bolkcom, the boy born in Bloomington, Minnesota, from a family of 9 kids. He's scrappy right away. You know that he's scrappy. And he told me once that his dad worked at WQAD in Moline. And back in the day, they used to have these World Wrestling, exhibits in the studio at the TV stations. And so Joe and his brothers used to go out and hand out flyers for this wrestling mania that was in the TV studio. Am I right? Am I getting that kind of right? So he grew up scrappy. He grew up working, doing hard work. And so you know that Joe never gives up. And he never gives in, right, Senator Kraayenbrink? He just never gives up and he never gives in. Many of you have noticed that. He's always been and will always be the guy who sticks up for those who are down. I call him the rat-a-tat-tat man because he just keeps on it. He pulls the scab off. If he doesn't hear the answer to his question, he asks again and again and again. And that is why Senator Joe Bolkcom is an excellent legislator. He asks the right questions. I love to wheel my chair around and listen to Joe because it's always informative, well-researched, and as you said, Senator Ragan, always entertaining. Congratulations on your retirement. Congratulations, Chris. The best to you.
The chair recognizes the Senator from Polk, Senator Petersen.
Thank you, Mr. President. These moments are always bittersweet because you hate to say goodbye to your friends in the Iowa Senate. But Joe, you are one of a kind. I have known you since I was serving in the Iowa House, and we were trying to put an end to bad financial practices, title loans, payday, and all of that. And then we also spent a lot of time trying to make restaurants and bars and workplaces across Iowa smoke-free, and you never gave up. And if you remember, at that time, the house used to be the zoo, and it was much more difficult to get it through. And you understood that and were willing to work with us when we were in the house to make changes and do what we needed to do to get that over the finish line. I think the thing when I think of you the most, I think you are always pushing this chamber to think bigger and take on issues that aren't easy. And I know you haven't gotten accomplished everything you'd like to get accomplished, like making sure that we have better drug policies and better water quality policies, but you have done a lot to move the issues forward that I don't think would have happened without your tenacity, your brains, and I'm sure a lot of that you got your fight from growing up in a big family. I mean, my mom grew up in a big family, and there is just something extra special about growing up with that many siblings who shape you into who you are. And we see that every day with you as a lawmaker. I also want to thank you for your friendship. When I was leader, I always knew you had my back, and so appreciated. Even last year when I sent my oldest off to college during a pandemic, I was a very worried mama, and you went and checked in on him, and I will never, ever forget that. Joe even took my son running. I mean, what kind of a friend is that? So thank you. The other thing I'd like to say about Joe is you can tell the type of person someone is by the way they talk about their family and also who they choose to marry. And the fact that you chose Chris Bell to marry, I think, is a sign of you're not intimidated by a bright, funny woman. And so I wish you and Chris all the best in your retirement. I am hoping that you'll be my constituent and a high-maintenance constituent that keeps pushing me, even when you're not at the State House, to think big, do big things for Iowa, and I wish you all the best to both you and Chris. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Webster, Senator Kraayenbrink.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I was trying to emulate you, but I can't get that button done yet. And we talked this morning that in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have this button closed by the time I stand up. So anyway, I just want to jump on board and just say, Joe, that Senator Bolkcom, I just appreciate you. I appreciate your humor. I appreciate your willingness to work with our side and be understanding with me. We do have a common friendship and relationship of a cousin that lives in Fort Dodge, and I know he always speaks highly of you, and it took me a little while to kind of get on to you, but I think once we do find that humorous, brilliant side of Joe, and from the State Senate on this side, I just want to thank you for your years of service, and I want to wish both of you a great retirement, and if I were you, just don't ever come back here. Okay, just don't ever come back. Just stay home and have fun with Iowa Flood Center. You're doing a great job there, and they're moving in the right direction too. So thanks again for your service. We appreciate you, and have a great retirement. Thanks.
Chair recognizes the senator from Lynn, Senator Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to rise in support of Senate Resolution 110 and share a few thoughts about the history of Senator Bolkcom in the Iowa legislature. For those of you who are new here, we used to have a practice of playing basketball every Wednesday night on a bipartisan basis over at Merrill Middle School. And in my early days, Senator Bolkcom was a very active participant in the basketball league, and quite good. Certainly better. He was certainly better than I was, even though in theory I was 7 years younger, and did a great job. I think about the remarkable accomplishments that Senator Bolkcom has been responsible for over the years, and it's a very, very long list. You've heard a few of those things mentioned here, the smoke-free law, which a lot of us worked on, the tobacco tax increase. By the way, neither of those have ever been repealed over the last 6 years. I just would share that. Lasting legacies, right? Lasting legacies. One of Senator Bolkcom's interests that I shared deeply was a clean energy future for our state. I remember Senator Bolkcom would often push me to do things that I didn't necessarily want to do, not because they weren't good ideas, but because at some point you have to sort of protect yourself a little bit from getting overconsumed by this place. But I remember Senator Bolkcom really wanted us to do something to advance energy efficiency, and I was like, yeah, well, that sounds good, sure, a good idea. And then he convinces the leaders to create an interim commission on energy efficiency, and then I somehow got appointed the chair of that interim committee. And that was a lot of work, although we learned from companies like Whirlpool that energy efficiency is the cheapest, quickest, least polluting, and most secure way of meeting our energy needs. And it was very educational, and then that following year, we had this long list of ideas, and we ended up getting a bill through that made incremental progress. Senator Bolkcom really wanted Iowa to join the 21st century and do more on solar power. We had a strong wind energy industry in Iowa, but we had very little solar power going. And so Senator Bolkcom proposed a tax credit to match a portion of the federal tax credit. And we passed that over here on the Senate side, but the House wouldn't act. And that's when we came up with the strategy of finding out, well, what did the chair of the Ways and Means Committee in the House want? And what he wanted was sales tax clarifications for the car wash industry. And so we came up with the idea of having a solar car wash bill, and it passed both chambers and was signed by Governor Branstad, and really remade the map for Iowa on solar energy, where you cannot drive across the state without seeing projects that were funded in every county by the solar energy tax credit, and that was thanks to the persistence and leadership of Joe Bolkcom. I just got, once again, that was another example where it was Senator Bolkcom's idea and then I got to run the bill. So thank you for giving me that opportunity, because I've talked about the solar car wash bill all across this country. Those are some of the lasting legacies, and there are others, and other people will talk about them. I've talked before on this floor recently about when you have a moment in your life where you truly feel needed, right? A lot of what we do up here is we advance ideas or maybe even ideology or interest groups that come to us with an idea, but there are existential moments where you're needed. And Senator Bolkcom, like me, will always remember the events of June 2008, when my community was devastated by an unprecedented flood event, and Iowa City, Senator Bolkcom's community, guarded by that reservoir that was designed for the express purpose of preventing flooding in Iowa City, failed to achieve that. And the devastation in the University of Iowa and Iowa City was widespread. We had a lot of legislation that came out of that, and without it, Cedar Rapids would still be flat on its back, and without it, the University of Iowa would have been permanently diminished, and Iowa City and Coralville would have been in a much different position than they are today. Just a couple, I could go on for hours about the flood of 2008 and the recovery efforts. In the interest of time, I just want to highlight a couple things. I don't know if you've had this experience in the majority party, We had it in January of 2009 as we were starting our 100 Days of Hope to try to help Iowans across our state recover from the flood of 2008. I needed to get a bill passed, and that bill needed to allow Cedar Rapids to have a special election on a local option sales tax on March 3rd. And it turned out that some people in Johnson County thought they needed the same thing. The only problem I had was the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, Senator Bolkcom, and the chair of the Appropriations Committee, Senator Dvorsky from Coralville, didn't agree. So in caucus, I stand up and I say, I feel like I'm torn between two lovers, feeling like a fool. What am I going to do? I got one chair against me and one chair for me. And so if you recall, Senator Bolkcom, we met that, I think, one of those Fridays in January, early January of 2009, and we negotiated the Treaty of Johnson County. And we came up with a way to make it work, and to the surprise of everybody, the voters did the exact opposite of what we thought the voters were going to do. The voters approved the sales tax in Iowa City and rejected it in Coralville. One by a margin of 8 votes and the other by the margin of 9 votes, if I recall correctly. But we got that bill passed. Governor Culver signed it. In Cedar Rapids, we were able to have our vote in our local option sales tax that passed with 62% because we desperately needed to mobilize money for our flood recovery, and Johnson County also had its vote. The other thing I want to mention is, in the flood of 2008, it was clear to us that Iowa was not using good information and advanced planning to deal with the flood risks. And so I was sharing this with Senator Bolkcom, and somehow we came up with the idea of actually asking our experts in the state to help us with this problem, because the flood of 2008 wasn't the first flood we were going to have, and it certainly wasn't going to be the last flood. And yet, during our flood in Cedar Rapids, the only river gauge between north of Cedar Rapids on the Cedar River was in Waterloo, 60 miles away, and it got knocked out by the high flood waters. Senator Mathis remembers this. And so we were ready for a flood stage of 26 feet. We had that baby beat. Unfortunately, Mother Nature and other forces conspired, and we ended up at 31 feet, and it was widespread devastation. And it wasn't the first time that Iowa had faced flooding and said we need better information. That had been one of the lessons of the flood of 1993. So talking with Senator Bolkcom, we came up with this idea, let's use the experts we already have in the state. Senator Bolkcom, do we have any experts at the University of Iowa? And indeed we did. Hydroscience experts at IIHR who had been serving the United States Navy for decades with the greatest hydroscience research on how to reduce the resistance on ships as they're traveling through the water, and how to help land amphibious landings. And we came up with the idea of maybe there's something the University of Iowa can do, and indeed there was. And some of you had the chance to visit the Iowa Flood Center's displays this morning. We took a small little investment of state resources and empowered the people at IIHR and the new Iowa Flood Center to go out and serve Iowans. And then in another masterstroke that was not my idea, and I don't know, Senator Bolkcom, if you were behind this, but we took the flood mapping money that we had, and instead of hiring out-of-state consultants to flood map Iowa, we said, let's have the Iowa Flood Center do it. So we began a process, and now here we are 13 years later with an Iowa Flood Center that has helped watersheds and communities across our state to be better prepared for floods with better information, real-time information, to be hands-on in terms of projects that would help reduce future flood damage, and has drawn down over $100 million of federal funds and become a national leader in flood management. That's the type of thing that happens when you have a major event and you have a legislator like Senator Bolkcom who understands government has an important role to play in protecting people, protecting property, and paving the way for a better future for a community and a state. And Senator Bolkcom helped do that. Nobody in the legislature ever does anything on their own. There's always a team effort, but it helps to have somebody with the vision and the leadership and the persistence and the tenacity of Joe Bolkcom to help make those things happen. So I hope everybody here can support Senate Resolution 110 and keep in mind what it means when you need government to be there to help, the way that Senator Bolkcom understood that there are times when government needs to be there to help. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Polk, Senator Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Bolkcom, there is a man who can get your blood pressure up. As a freshman, you were in the majority, and I was just starting off in the House, and we worked on a bill together. And we were both running it in our respective chambers as a bipartisan bill, and I had a heck of a time getting it through the House. And I came over to the Senate and watched from the balcony, and I said, darn it, why didn't I say what Joe just said? You nailed it over here. And we passed the bill together. But what really gets my blood pressure up is that Senator Bolkcom and I are not that much different in age. I think you're just maybe 2 or 3 decades older than me. And I went to your office, and you had up in your crow's nest here a bicycle that you had brought in, that you rightfully said, you know, I ride this back and forth to the Capitol every day. Well, I thought, well, I'm in Altoona. I should be able to keep up with this gentleman. And I rode my bicycle down Hubble University Avenue here and nearly died. And I was like, I am never going to try and keep up with Joe again after this. The danger of Senator Bolkcom is that we all hear him on the floor and what he says, and from time to time we can say, that's a really good argument. But where his real charm comes in is when you sit down and talk with him offline, after a committee hearing, in a sub, or on the floor, and you recognize that you truly have the heart of Iowa in every policy you undertake. And while we might not agree on every issue, you are compelling, you are well educated, and you always have the care of your constituents first. And so, Senator Bolkcom, thank you for making us as a legislator stronger, and thank you for what you do, both in this chamber, on your bicycle, and what you do as a husband to Chris. Good luck to you both in retirement.
Chair recognizes the senator from Delaware, Senator Zumbach.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to address Senator Bolkcom. Maybe I should do this. I'll get it right. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, no, with all due respect, Senator, it's ironic that the Senate resolution number is number 110, because we've all heard the proverbial giving 110%, and I don't think there's anybody in this chamber that does that better than you, Senator. You work with passion, and if there's one thing I've tried to convey to my children, because my father conveyed it to me, whatever you do, do it with passion. Have a passion for it. Senator Bolkcom, you have that, and you've always had that, and I think you have made all 50 of us, the other 49, figure out who we are because of that passion. And whether we're agreeing with you with that passion or disagreeing with you with that passion, you brought it to this chamber every day. And I want to share 2 situations that I remember working with you, Senator Bolkcom. One, it really wasn't working with you. It was a moment that I witnessed you as Ways and Means Chair. It was back here in the Senate lounge, and long story short, you were being dogged really, really hard with lobbyists that wanted you to get things done in the Ways and Means Committee. And you were getting dogged really, really hard. And I remember you stopped in your tracks, turned around, looked this gentleman right in the eyes and said, "That's not going to happen. You need to know that. It's not going to happen." And I saw a resolve in you that was so vividly clear, which made you a great Ways and Means Committee. Now, I can't tell you whether I agreed or disagreed with that situation, but I respected you, how you handled that with clarity. You really had your game on well, Senator. I couldn't have been more proud of you. And the other moment was several years ago. I can't even tell you what bill it was, but I was running a bill on the floor, and you had the argument on the other side of the issue. And we sparred back and forth on that conversation, disagreeing and agreeing, asking the question, answering the question. We went back and forth, and ultimately, you know how it works, you're in the majority, you win. But you came over after that debate and said, "Zumbach, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay," because you had a really good debate today. And I knew if I could debate with Senator Bolkcom and even remotely keep up with you, that, yeah, maybe I will be okay. So, Senator Bolkcom, thank you for making the other 49 of us figure out who we really are, because you pushed us to that 110% level all the time. You're a great man, a great senator, but I'm going to put you up to a challenge. I will drive to Iowa City and eat an avocado if you'll eat a bacon cheeseburger. So, thank you, Senator.
Chair recognizes the senator from Dubuque, Senator Jochum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Joe. This is, for me, also bittersweet, and I hope I can get through this without crying. You know, Joe is one of those guys who pushes the envelope. And I am incredibly grateful for those in this room from both sides of the ideological spectrum who push that envelope. Because it is those people who push all the rest of us to hold that mirror up and say, we can do better than this. And Joe has been one of those who have pushed the envelope for 24 years. Or is it 22? It's a long time, 24. His passion, his tenacity, his courage to speak truth to power sometimes has rubbed some people the wrong way in this room. But I got to know Joe a little bit better on a more personal level back when he was first elected. I was in the House, and we had tried to form what we called the Midwest Progressive Legislators Network. And it was legislators from Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, South Dakota, and we were meeting in Minneapolis. And Joe and I drove up together to Minneapolis for that first meeting, and that is when I got to see the other side of Joe Bolkcom. I can assure you that as much as he has pushed this chamber on so many emerging issues, Joe is always one of those people, like I said, he pushes the envelope, he's always one step ahead of the rest of us, whether it was research activities credit, medical marijuana, the earned income tax credit, renewable energy, the list goes on. But Joe pushed us to do those things. But I also know when my daughter died, when I had that trip to Minneapolis with Joe 24 years ago, I saw the softer, gentler, more humorous side of Joe Bolkcom. This is something I want to say to all of us. We are family. And in families, we disagree. What saddens me is that too often, because we disagree, we decide we don't like one another. Believe it or not, there really was a day in the legislature when legislators could fight like cats and dogs on the floor of the Senate or the House, and at the end of the day, they were still friends. And they went out to dinner together, they enjoyed one another's company, and they knew each other on a much more personal basis, which made for a much more civil a much more civil legislature and a legislature that was really more devoted to solving problems. Because no one party has all the answers. And Joe, to me, is a constant reminder of that. So Joe, I am going to miss you. Remember, we are family. And I would hope that you and Chris will continue to visit us and contact us when we're not in session so that we can still enjoy a bike ride together or a run together. I can't run, but I'll bike with you. And I just want to wish both of you happy trails. Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes the senator from Dallas, Senator Trone-Garriott.
So I, as the newest senator in the Democratic caucus, I've really appreciated the guidance I've gotten from all of our more senior senators, especially the folks who are retiring this year. But Senator Bolkcom and Chris, you have especially been helpful in guiding me to learn this process and find my way and help navigate this very complicated and strange way of doing business here in the Senate. But I appreciate the most how you have looked after me as a person, as a colleague, whether it's when days get long and you're chasing me around asking me if I've eaten anything real today, if I've had any food. And when it was time for me to move, you were the first one to show up to rip out carpeting. And let me tell you, this man can work, and he works hard, and he works really fast. And the next morning, he was at my desk asking, now when are we going to paint? The energy that you have, I know you'll put it to good use. And so I'm so excited to see where that energy will go next. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Wahls.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I rise today in very strong support of Senate Resolution 110. When I think about Joe Bolkcom, a bunch of things come to mind. When he told me that he was going to be retiring, first I went through the 5 stages of grief: anger, bargaining, depression, whatever comes next. Anyway, at the end of the day, we're all very happy for you, very happy for Chris. You've been obviously critical members of this caucus for so long. And when I think about Joe Bolkcom, one of the words that first comes to mind is the word drive, which is ironic given how much time he spends on his bicycle. But it is very hard to keep up with Joe Bolkcom. The energy, the tenacity, the willingness to do the work, like Senator Trone-Garriott just mentioned, is something that we all respect, we all admire, and we will all miss greatly. Senator Bolkcom's policy smarts are second to none in this room. I don't know how it'll be harder for all of us to wrap our hands around the budget, around the tax code, around so many issues of human resources without you. Courage is another word that comes to mind. The willingness to do hard things, to stand up for what you know is right. I know that a lot of you think it's hard representing your districts, but have you tried representing Iowa City? It's not easy, and it requires courage. It requires a willingness to think differently and to learn. And that is not something that all of us are able to do easily, but you make it look easy. I've greatly appreciated your willingness to be a team player in a profession, a line of work where it is very easy to get focused on what you want to do. I don't think that you've ever lost sight of being a part of something bigger, and that's not easy. You've been a mentor. You've been a close friend, and we wish you and Chris the very best. We're going to miss you a lot. Don't be a stranger.
Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support of Senate Resolution 110. I got to know Joe through his time when he was in the Board of Supervisors. He was one of my bosses, I guess, since I had worked at the sheriff's office. But he was a person that you could always go and talk to and sit down and ask why they were doing a certain thing. Well, when I went to run for the Senate, the Republicans like to compare me to Joe Bolkcom. I got to be Joe Bolkcom for 6 months until people figured out who I really was. When we were running, everybody from my southern counties was asking me, well, Joe Bolkcom says this, and I would always come back, well, I'm not Joe Bolkcom. I may not agree with that. But it was kind of an honor to be compared to him, someone that has done so well in Iowa City and represents his district so well. I would have a very hard time representing that district, and Joe does it with ease, and I don't think it's an easy task. But Joe has always been a person that I could go talk to. Joe has been someone that I would ask for advice on tax policy, on whatever it may be, to get his perspective. We may not always agree to, we may agree to disagree, but he was someone that would always give me the other side, and I appreciate that. And I'm going to hate to see you leave here because you are a person that I do respect. In many ways, I think you're probably more conservative fiscally sometimes than I am on different things. And I really am going to miss that. I hope you and Chris have a wonderful retirement, and I look forward to speaking with you and talking with you later.
The chair recognizes the senator from Woodbury, Senator Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I stand in support of Senate Resolution 110. Senator Bolkcom, I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you. If this thing was a baseball game, ideologically, I think you'd be in deep left field somewhere around the warning track. But the thing I'm going to miss the most, I'm going to miss your sarcasm. I'm going to miss that a lot, actually. The Mr. President, am I in order for a point? You button your jacket, and I think, oh, here it comes. He's just going to thoroughly enjoy peppering us with his little sarcastic rhetorical jabs and slap us repeatedly with those things. And we probably should have called you on a few more of them. We probably should have, but that made this fun. And I really did enjoy that. I enjoyed the trips to the well in front of Schneider and Chapman, and the finger pointing and the yelling and the barb and the repartee and everything that went with that. And I got to say, it kind of reminds me of being home in New Jersey. You know, where I've got these Democrat brothers and a family reunion, and we couldn't agree on a whole lot ideologically. But the thing that I have seen about you, in some rare instances, you would say something where I'm like, you know, maybe he's probably got a point there. And maybe we need to think about what he just said. But the thing that I did really see in you is an authentic care and concern for people. And in my mind, that's the best motivation to be here. And I appreciate that about you. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate your commitment to serve that way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Black Hawk, Senator Dotzler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise in support of Resolution 110. Senator Bolkcom and I go back a ways. He spent all of his 24 years here in the Senate. I spent my first 6 years in the Iowa House. So when I came over to the Iowa Senate, I didn't know really what to expect. And you end up meeting people in this body that impress you and make you want to be a better senator because of their work ethic, and I think Senator Bolkcom definitely is that. It was kind of after working together, we had some mutual discoveries. One, I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, and lived in Bloomington. And so there's two Minnesota guys here. And, you know, for years we never had a winning baseball team, but the Minnesota Twins came through with their Homer Hankies one year. But the Minnesota Vikings have never failed to break our hearts. It's been a real torturous time from the very first Super Bowl, which I got to watch. After that, the Vikings never, Fran Tarkenton in the group. Anyway, I'm going to start crying. Please. Okay, so the other thing that I found out about Senator Bolkcom, Senator Mathis talked a little bit about his father. Well, I was a World Wrestling fan, being a wrestler, and we were down at one of the local establishments, and on the wall there were all these pictures of these famous wrestlers. And I got talking about each one, and all of a sudden Joe knew every one of them. And I'm going like, well, how the heck do you know, these guys? And you know, of course, World Wrestling was an entertainment thing, but these wrestlers were tough. To get slapped full speed in the face and tossed and beat up, and it was entertainment, but it's tough. And I think Joe had those kind of policies and behaviors in himself that was ingrained, with his family and his father. But I was just shocked to know that he got to meet Andre the Giant, and his dad drove him around. I'm going like, how did he even get in a car? I mean, Andre the Giant's the guy that was in Princess Bride, if you have one of the great movies, funny movies. But so that was very, very enlightening. And then I found out about him cycling and being a bicyclist. And actually, I ran into him and Chris Bell on a bike ride down by Iowa City one time, and I knew that they were, and Chris rides too, so people don't know much about that, but I knew that they were two people that were a match at that time. And then Joe being a runner, I mean, we all talked about it, but he's like the runner in his weight class in Iowa, and he wins all the time. So I don't know how. And then, outside he canoes and does all that, and we know he's a vegetarian. I never thought he had enough strength to do anything. And he's just wiry, I guess. I don't know. So one of my apologies to him, and I'll do it again, and I have done it a bunch of times, before I knew he was capable of all this stuff, I thought, well, I can get him a little protein. We were at a event downtown, and they had these jumbo shrimp, and I beat him up verbally to finally I'd say, this stuff's healthy, it's really good, it can't, you're gonna love it. Well, Joe ate the shrimp, which shocked me to this day. He never probably ever ate shrimp since then. But the next day I saw him, and he didn't have anything good to say about how his body rejected the food I talked him into eating. And Joe, I still kind of feel bad about that, but the shrimp industry definitely suffered from you not eating anymore, I'm sure. So Joe and I became pretty good friends. He actually came up to my place, and we stayed and had campfire talks and talked about just life in general. And he's that kind of person. And then I had a Cedar River, or what's called Cedar River Rocks, had an event that people came from all over the state, and Senator Hogg was there, and we canoed down the Cedar River, and it's a beautiful, I live on the river, so it's a beautiful, beautiful trip and great fun. We need to do more things like that. He certainly understands the value of outside recreation to Iowans. And in being a RAGBRAI veteran, a person who does running and trails and spends time across the state in the rivers and streams, and a real fighter for our state parks, if you haven't noticed. Maybe we could be a parting gift to him, and let's do something to help these rangers stay in their homes. We can work on that, Joe. We still got time. You got a couple more. Heck, you probably got a few weeks left to get up every day and make a speech about it. And maybe I can help you. The other thing about Joe is whatever bills we pass, and we were in control for 10 years, and I was probably a little bit more liberal with the policies that were being recommended by Director Durham and Governor Branstad when he first got reelected, and some of the things that he worked on. And Senator Bolkcom was always one to say, what is the value to Iowans if we do this? If we were going to have a tax incentive, what's the value? Are we going to get a return for our investment? And he made you do your work and get the job done. And because of that, we ended up having tax credits for value-added agriculture and working with soybeans. It helped stimulate an industry up in Fort Dodge. That was one of the major deals up there. We worked on the property tax cuts together with Senator McCoy. Myself and him were on the subcommittee that did the commercial property tax cut. That somehow the deal that we cut got thrown away. And he also, towards the last of our time in the majority, worked on projects to help reinvestment districts in the state. We also did the Field of Dreams sales tax cut that helped Denise Tillman and her husband get that property, being able to try to move something forward. Lawsuits tied it all up, and eventually Denise passed away to cancer, and they picked that up. But you saw what the investment that we made in a movie and that Field of Dreams has done for marketing for the state of Iowa. And that tax credit program was based off of what came before it, the Iowa Speedway. And Newton had lost manufacturing there, and the Iowa Speedway was one of those things where we did a sales tax reimbursement. There was a lot of fighting and infighting within our caucus about why would we support a racing industry. And we have had limited success with that, but that speedway is not done. It will succeed. And one of the things that we found out that has been holding us back is when NASCAR bought the track, there was some competition issues with Kansas City, and hopefully those things are going to get resolved in the years to come. But there's a major event going to be there this year with the Indy cars, and those kind of investments that we make to try to make Iowa diverse, an exciting place for recreation. Those are the kind of things that Senator Bolkcom finally agreed to and worked with others to make sure that it happened. So, as has been said earlier, I guess I could go on for a long time about my good friend Senator Joe Bolkcom, but I just want to say this, that all the time that he's been here, even in the arguments that I see on the floor, and it can get kind of nasty back and forth. When we go back into the meeting room, He's willing to sit down and work through this as if nothing happened. Let's try to make Iowa a better place. And I think that's one of the most important qualities a legislator can have, is that when you get in the back rooms, you sit down and try to work with each other and try to make Iowa a better place and make sure what you're doing is adding value to the image of Iowa, to the economy of Iowa, and to the people of Iowa in the long run. And Senator Bolkcom, we're going to miss you. You're going to leave a big hole in our hearts. But I know you're not always going to be active for the issues that are important to you. And thank you for being a friend.
Chair recognizes the senator from Marshall, Senator Edler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support of Senate Resolution 110. You know, I'm going to go back to the first day I was in the Senate, and when my family was here, they asked me when I got home that night, who is that guy that stands up so fast to the microphone? And, you know, it was Senator Bolkcom, and I swear one of these nights when I'm leaving here late, I'm going to catch him in the phone booth with his Flash costume on, but haven't caught him yet, Senator. You know, all joking aside, I've worked with Senator Bolkcom and Chris on a lot of human resources issues, and you know, while we don't always agree on how to get to a certain end point, I do feel that we believe we're doing what's best for Iowans, and I think we've developed a mutual respect for each other. And you know, I'm gonna miss you, Joe, because you kind of make my morning some days. But wish you the best of luck, and I will hope everything goes well for you in the future.
Chair recognizes the senator from Lynn, Senator Taylor.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I rise to talk about Senate Resolution 110, but first a parliamentary inquiry. If I vote no, can he stay? No, I understand. You've earned your retirement, Joe. I do stand in support of this. I just wanted to say a couple things that when I first heard earlier this year of his retirement, you know, I thought about our service here. Most of my years have been across the hall, like Senator Dotzler just said, in the House. So I've just been able to be here with him for just the last few years this term. But I've known him since about 2004 in a special election for Bob Dvorsky in Iowa City. I ran that election, and Joe was a big help. I think he was on the Board of Supervisors maybe back then. But so when I first heard of his retirement, I thought about our friendship and our time together, and I have a really cool cell phone that has over 25,000 photos on it because I just save everything. And so I learned this technique. You can put a search in there and, you know, put Joe Bolkcom. Well, nothing happens. So then you find a picture of Joe and you identify it, and then it finds all the pictures of Joe. And we've got pictures on my cell phone of time together in the House or in the Senate, at press conferences when we toured Children's Hospital and we learned about the wonderful building that is in Iowa City, and or maybe a flood tour in my district, or it may be a committee meeting or a press conference about where we're going to try to address the problems relative to the disaster relief, or fundraisers or committee meetings, whatever. There's a lot of photos, and that just made me think of, I appreciate getting to know you and serving with you, Joe, and of all these years, and I wish you and Chris the very best.
Senator Bolkcom. There are no other senators seeking the floor, but I would love to see you stand and button that suit. So I think everyone wants to hear a speech. So the chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Bolkcom.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, would I be in order for a brief point?
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues and friends, well, let me just start. I've got a few prepared remarks. They're mostly pretty serious, but let me just thank you all for the very generous and kind remarks, especially to my Senate Democratic colleagues. It's been just fantastic to serve here with you, and I really appreciate your comments. And to my friends on the other side of the aisle, you know, I've tried to be, well, I can be cantankerous and be direct. I've also tried to be personable and friendly and be a real person. And I really appreciate all your kind remarks this morning and all the work that we've done together. I've served with some amazing colleagues and staff over these 24 years. And there are so many people to thank for my time here in the Iowa Senate. So let me start at the top. I want to thank Chris Bell, my partner, best friend, spouse, and handler. We met here at the Capitol. And actually, I wouldn't be here today without her great advice, her love, and support. Thank you. I love you. And I would not be here without the support of my parents and family. I've not talked about my family very much here in the Senate. My folks, Lloyd and Nancy O'Brien Bolkcom, had 9 kids. I have 5 sisters and 3 brothers. We were raised as working-class Irish Catholic Democrats. My parents' greatest accomplishment was teaching us to look out for others in need and the importance of education. They inspired all 9 of their kids to get a college education, an incredible accomplishment that has served all of us really well. Of course, I would not have served all these years without the strong and dedicated support of the people in Iowa City and Johnson County who supported my election to the Johnson County Board of Supervisors in 1992 and to the Iowa Senate in 1998. I've been blessed to have the responsibility and the honor to represent such passionate, progressive, and caring Iowans. Iowa City is in Iowa, by the way. Sometimes I think we don't think that. It's not another planet. I've often said it's been one of the best political jobs representing Iowa City and Johnson County voters. Your support has allowed me to take positions and advocate for issues that push the envelope or made a point before people were ready for it. I worked hard to represent your interests. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your long and strong support. I'd also like to thank all my political and personal friends far and near that have supported me professionally and personally over the past 3 decades. You know who you are. Thank you. I want to thank all the staff on both sides of the aisle that support our work here. The Senate Democrats have a seasoned, experienced, professional staff that makes us all look good. I've served 2+ decades with most of you. Ron Parker, Debbie Kattenhorn, Eric Baker, Julie Simon, Chris Bell, Rusty Martin, Sue Fecky, Jace Michaels, Bridget Godis, Carrie Scott, Erica Shorkey, Kathy Engel, and our newbie, Zach Engstrom. You deserve credit for all our accomplishments over the years. Thank you for all your advice, hard work, and friendship. I'm forever indebted to you. I also want to give a shout out to all my session clerks. I probably had 17 or 18 of them. They've all been great. And a special thank you to Whit Harbitz, who is my clerk this session. Also thanks to the entire Republican caucus staff, but especially Pam Dugdale, Russ Trimble, Tom Ashworth, Gannon, and the late Josh Bronzink, who I worked most closely with over the years. You've done great work, and I've appreciated your friendship. I also want to thank our Senate staff, the people behind the scenes that manage the process, all the bills, paperwork, and basically make this place run. They're in the well right now. They work crazy, unpredictable hours and are always pleasant and helpful. In addition to the Senate staff, I want to thank all the AFSCME brothers and sisters that shovel the snow off the Capitol steps, clean the bathrooms, empty the trash, and maintain this incredibly beautiful building we get to call our office. And the kind and cheerful pages and doormen that I've worked with all these years. Kermit, Bill Krieg, Frank, and Jerry. Thank you for all the troopers from the Iowa State Patrol for keeping our Capitol safe and secure for all. Our work is also supported by Legislative Service Agency bill drafters, fiscal experts that create the documents that inform everything we do. It's the words on a piece of paper that make the law. They are patient and knowledgeable. I've worked with many skilled staff: John Pollack, Patty Finaro, Mike Lipsman, Jess Benson, Michael Duster, Mike Mertens, and Jeff Robinson. And of course, there's a lot of people that serve our executive branch agencies, working with legislators to help us understand what they do. They include department directors, division administrators, legislative liaisons. I've worked with tons of them. I've had the privilege to work with extremely dedicated state employees that come to work every day to make government work for the people of Iowa. Thank you for all your work. And the lobby. I've made a lot of lifelong friends in the lobby of the Iowa State House. People that have worked hard to educate us about their clients' issues and concerns. It's not an easy job they have. I appreciate their patience, support, and advice over all these years. To the State House Press Corps. We're blessed to have such a professional, dedicated, hardworking journalist covering the work here. It's no small task to keep track of the work, the negotiations, the behind-the-scenes decision-making that goes on. These journalists are the eyes and ears of our constituents. They report to them on our work. It keeps us honest and keeps our constituents informed. Jack, please bring the press home to the Senate press bench next January. They deserve to be there, and they deserve that respect from us here in the Senate. To my dear colleagues, I've served with some amazing leaders, great colleagues, some interesting characters. If I named them all, including the people in this room, this speech would go on for an hour or two. It's been 24 years is a long time, and I don't think anybody wants that. So let me just say to every single member of the Senate on both sides of the aisle, you have my respect and gratitude for the sacrifices you and your family make to serve here. I will miss you all and appreciate your friendship. Mr. President, I arrived in the Senate at the end of the last century, January 1999. Tom Vilsack was Iowa's newly elected governor. Republicans controlled the legislature. Stu Iverson was the majority leader, and Mike Gronstel was our minority leader. My first 6 years, I served in the minority. That was followed by 2 years when the Senate was tied 25-25. Then Democrats controlled the Senate for the next 10 years. 4 of those 10 years, Democrats actually had the trifecta. It seems like a distant memory when Jeff Culver was governor. And for the last 6 years, I've served again in the minority. A lot has changed over the years, and a lot has stayed the same. This ongoing experiment in governance is amazing. What a design. I've served with all sorts of different folks from all different backgrounds and experiences. Everyday people getting elected to serve and make law. I'm always astonished that anything gets done that makes any sense given the spinning cauldron of people and ideas. It's a miracle. It's genius. But it's not guaranteed. It requires the people that send us here and the people that hold the trust listen to each other and work together for the common good. That has grown more difficult. Our politics are a bit broken right now. We've gotten sharper and unfortunately meaner with each other. We have been more willing to be less civil. We have witnessed anger and violence in political settings. Emotions have spilled over and gotten the best of us sometimes. As the quantity of our communications has exploded, the quality of our communications with each other has declined. Tweets and social media-driven politics has been a two-edged sword. It's been a great way to share ideas and connect with each other, and it's been harsh and an aggregator of dark activity, conspiracy theories that threaten our ability to effectively govern ourselves. It's incumbent on all of us to take stock in what's happening to our political system. Americans and Iowans are weary. They want us to solve their problems. They want us to work together. They expect us to do what we say we're going to do. They don't have a lot of confidence in either side. They see the power that special interests exert over this process. They don't like it. They think we are out for ourselves. We know that's not true, but we have work to do to prove it. After all, we are the government, a government by, for, and of the people. It's us. Government is not some abstraction. It's ordinary people. It's our work later today, coming together to solve problems through the decisions we make and the votes we take. It's doing things together that we can't do on our own. Government is a powerful, positive force to make life easier and better for everyone. Good government makes private wealth and prosperity possible. Colleagues, we have work to do. It's up to each of us to think about how we can create an Iowa government that supports everyone, not just the people that agree with us. What are we each willing to do to create more civil dialogue and common ground solutions that make Iowans proud of our state, make our state welcoming to everyone, make our state a destination for creativity, tolerance, and equality, make our state a place that protects and preserves our natural resources? What can each of us do? Mr. President, maybe we should go bowling more often. I thought bowling was a good time. We got to hang out and be ourselves. Senator Dickey. Get to bowl. Let me end by thanking all of you for the very kind words and friendship and putting up for me with the few times that I might have activated Rule 9, Mr. President. I'm sorry. Not really. Mr. President, you know you have stayed too long when you get tired of hearing your own voice on the Senate floor. And I have. So I leave here with much more than I brought. I leave here with fantastic memories, a few accomplishments, and lifetime friendships that will nurture and endure until the end. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes the senator from Cerro Gordo, Senator Ragan, for final remarks on Senate Resolution 110.
We've certainly heard the spirited debate on this, but I would move for everyone to support this and would ask that the Secretary of Senate read.
Senate Resolution number 110, by the Committee on Rules and Administration, a resolution honoring Senator Joe Bolkcom for his service in the Iowa Senate. Whereas Senator Joseph L. Bolkcom was born in Bloomington, Minnesota, engendering in him a lifelong allegiance to the Minnesota Twins and Vikings, and grew up in Moline, Illinois, part of a large Irish Catholic family nurtured by his parents, Lloyd and Nancy, who instilled in their 9 children a love for reading and learning, the virtues of hard work and perseverance, and appreciation of one's own good fortune and the plight of those less fortunate. The importance of social justice and activism, a passion for politics rooted in compassion, and a love of their Irish heritage. And whereas Senator Bolkcom received his AA degree in political science from Blackhawk College, a BA in sociology from St. Ambrose University, and an MA in public affairs from the University of Iowa, and helped found and direct 2 senior advocacy organizations, worked for the Johnson County Health Department, and served on the Johnson County Board of Supervisors. And whereas Senator Bolkcom was first elected to the Iowa Senate in 1998, and during his 6 terms has continued the proud tradition of progressive public servants from Johnson County, serving on numerous boards and committees, as a member of the Appropriations, Commerce, Environment and Energy Independence, Human Resources, Judiciary, Labor and Business Relations, Natural Resources and Environment, Rules and Administration, State Government, and Ways and Means Standing Committees, and the Health and Human Services Appropriations Subcommittee. As ranking member of the Appropriations, Ethics, Local Government, and Ways and Means Standing Committees, and the Health and Human Rights Appropriations Subcommittee. As Vice Chairperson of the Health and Human Services Appropriations Subcommittee, as Chairperson of the Ways and Means Standing Committee, and as an Assistant Majority Leader, Assistant Democratic Leader, and Majority Whip. And whereas Senator Bolkcom's accomplishments include helping to expand Iowa's earned income tax credit, increase the price of tobacco products and end smoking in public places and workplaces, deter car title loan sharks, extend overdue civil rights protections to LGBTQ Iowans, strengthen voting rights, bring health care and mental health services to Iowa families, address environmental challenges, create solar tax credit incentives, and establish and expand the Iowa Medical Cannabis Program, as well as to work to decriminalize recreational marijuana. And whereas Senator Bolkcom has also addressed these fundamental issues as the Outreach and Community Education Director for the University of Iowa Center for the Global and Regional Environmental Research and the Iowa Flood Center, and through his involvement in the organizations such as the Iowa Civil Liberties Union, the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, the American Federation of Teachers, Local 716, the Iowa Bicycle Coalition, and the Progressive States Network. And whereas, while Senator Bolkcom describes himself as a vegetarian, runner, cyclist, gardener, cook, vintage tie collector, and pro-science in his legislative philosophy is doing extensive research and listening to all ideas. The signature debating style of this relentless champion for the environment, human and civil rights, public education, those living in poverty, Iowa's working families, and those who have no voice may be best described by those on the receiving end as receiving and resembling a finishing move, a concept familiar to this pro wrestling aficionado from the time he shuttled Worldwide Federation superstar Andre the Giant Roussimoff around in his father's Cadillac. And whereas, while Senator Bolkcom has expressed heartfelt gratitude for the trust, guidance, and strong support he has received from the people of Iowa City and Johnson County, and has called his legislative seat one of the best political jobs in the country, his colleagues on both sides of the aisle acknowledge that he retires from the Senate. Senator Bolkcom leaves big shoes to fill, and that his experience, hard work, and commitment to the people of Iowa will be missed beyond measure. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the Senate honors Senator Joe Bolkcom for his years of service in the Iowa Senate, and wishes him, his spouse Chris Bell, and their family more quality time on the trails and all the best in years to come.